You're now listening to the Something Good Podcast Network. Please press any key to continue.
A kiss, as defined by Dan Webster, is something pleasing, a caress, a gentle touch. But there's another kiss that isn't in Webster's.
Hey world, we're kids!
Some critics say they don't make music, they just make noise.
Yeah, Kiss sucks!
Kiss implies the extreme in the theatrics on stage, utilizing fire and smoke and bizarre costumes, and the ever-consistent, constant concealment of their true identities.
Speaking of which, Kiss is going to have its own comic book soon.
Take Kiss with you. It's fun. Show your friends and be the first. Now.
Oh my God, no time to turn!
Welcome. Oh, God damn it. I don't know what got me tickled there.
I was about to say, why is it I smoke and y'all get high?
Yeah, really. Welcome once again to No Time to Turn, a Kiss Nerd podcast.
Nerds.
Oh, yeah.
Did Gene on the last one. I'm doing Paul on this one.
All right. As always, I'm with Cap and Alex from the Something Good For You Network.
Yo, yo.
What's up?
Check out the network and all the other goodies they got going on across the network.
The network.
The SGN network.
Yes.
You're listening to...
Dun, dun, dun,
Actually, it'd just be
SGN.
SGN. Here we go.
You're
SGN
listening
2.
to SGN.
The Something Good Network.
ESPN of just useless trivia.
What the fuck does the E and S stand for? ESPN. I don't want to know. I don't care. It's a rhetorical question. I just don't... All right. Welcome once again to No Time to Turn. We're tracking, we're just rambling is what we're doing. Tracking the history of Kiss album by album, year by year. We are now going to examine the Crazy Nights era.
Wow!
Yeah.
All right, people, now listen.
Listen.
People try to take my soul away.
No one's ever gonna change me.
Because that's who I am.
That's who he is. We're gonna examine all of this. We're examining the relic of the Crazy Nights era. This has been the longest separation of time between two Kiss albums, I think, ever. Am I wrong on that?
I believe
Up to this point.
I mean,
definitely.
even in the late 70s, when there was a length of time between Love Gun and Dynasty, they still had, 6 albums come out in that 2-year stretch?
Yeah. So even though it may have not been new original material, they still
they
did
had
the solo albums.
Double Platinum and Alive too.
Yeah.
So here they've gone full 2 years. We'll explain why here shortly. They have become keenly aware of the commercial success of younger hard rock acts, Def Leppard, Bon Jovi, who are, I think they share the label with. Mm-hmm. They're label mates. I just wanted to say label mates. This, and they're he Paul, I think, is the primary. He's the captain of the ship solidly at this point. We've discussed this on the previous episode.
By far.
And it's his decision, I think, that, the band needs, with shades of The Elder, they need a really, really, really big comeback album.
Oh, yeah.
And to achieve this, they need an A-list producer capable of helping create these giant hit singles.
Yes.
That will take them from being merely a platinum band, but to a multi-platinum.
Why don't you guys just write a hit song?
Yeah. Well, this is the attitude, but they need to get. It's not enough that they've sold 1 million copies of they didn't sell 1 million copies of Asylum. It didn't even go platinum. But it's not enough that Animalize has even gone platinum. They're looking at everyone else and they're like, well, yeah, we're selling 1 million copies, but man, we're not selling 10 and 12 million copies like everyone else.
Yeah.
Boston has just made a huge comeback. Out of left field, no one saw that coming at all.
And then to tie it to who they wind up working with, Heart makes a huge comeback.
Well, that's my point. They choose Ron Nevison, and Ron Nevison has an impressive track record. He had engineering credits for no less than The Who and Led Zeppelin.
Yep.
material that wound up as physical graffiti. And then he engineered the Who's Quadrophenia album, which is, in my opinion,
the better rock opera,
the best album they ever did.
Ooh, that's a whole podcast in itself.
Yeah, I love the Who though. I mean, I really fucking love the Who. He had production credits for Thin Lizzy's Nightlife.
Yep.
And some people call that their cocktail album, but I love it. I love Thin Lizzy. I mean, Thin Lizzy was such a great underrated band.
Barely any stinkers, if there were any.
And he produced all the classic Michael Schenker era UFO. And that's a band that I slept on for way too long. Anyone that likes, especially even 70s Kiss, like I'm an avowed 70s Kiss nerd, I think would really appreciate UFO.
Yeah, just good classic 70s hard rock, big guitars.
If you're just a fan of just good, solid hard rock music, especially that Michael Schenker stuff. They made 2 albums prior to that are really good too. It's different, but it's really good. I think they suffered kind of the same fate as Kiss as they transitioned into the 80s. I don't think they lost their identity as much, but once they lost Michael Schenker, that whatever that chemistry was, the combustion that made those records so great, because Michael Schenker didn't take it with him to his solo thing, and UFO weren't able to take it with them to continue as UFO. And I mean, I'm not knocking the UFO of the 80s, but man, there's just something about those records.
Right.
And I'm not going to put that on Ron Nevison though, but I mean, I'm just trying to give you an idea of where he comes from. He had really highly successful, commercially successful, which is important, commercially successful albums with some really big names in the 80s. Survivor, Jefferson Starship.
Yep.
He produced Ozzy's Ultimate Sin record, which was considered a bit of a comeback because I guess Bark at the Moon had been a letdown. I don't know. And then most importantly and most notably, he was behind the giant comeback album for Heart.
What About Love and all that stuff.
And so he's in high demand. So Paul decides that's who's going to be the Svengali that's going to bring Kiss to that same level.
Yep.
Kiss is going to make a record. They're going to go out on tour for 2 years, and they're going to sell 12 million copies because they're fucking Kiss, and we've got the combination. This is going to do it. This is going to bring us back.
Right.
Because the band's in debt. Their managers at Glickman Marks are using everything in their power to shoestring a budget together and to keep them kind of viable, especially in this period because there's no income. Mm-hmm. But they're looking at Ron Nevison and they're going to wait for his schedule to clear so they can work for him. And this creates, like I said, a full 2-year gap between the Asylum album and this.
And wasn't Ron originally also looked at for Paul's 78 solo record?
He was, he was on the short list, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, it is interesting to note that in the 70s, they were turning 2 albums in a year.
Yeah.
Albums of a higher quality and longer lasting resonance, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's my opinion. I think it's absolute track. I mean, we look at it, that's what we're talking about.
Even in a short 10 years from now, that would even kind of prove to be the case. They put the makeup back on and start playing those classic songs.
Everything that this band does is built off of that. So I'm not wrong in saying that.
The ticket sales aren't wrong either.
Yep.
So we're in a position now, though, there's no income coming in, and all of a sudden, what happens? Peter decides to cash out on his partnership. As we talked about, he's retained a share of partnership in some degree, and he has to be paid off.
Yeah.
They figure out a way to do that to make him go away. Now they own Peter's makeup, just like they own Ace's makeup, which is why they can continue to use that.
Well, they don't own Ace's yet, do they?
Yeah, they do. I think they do.
I thought his was a little later. That's been a contention
of debate, but from my understanding that when he bailed out in 82, that he just sold out wholesale. Now he claims different. Who knows?
So,
but I'm going to side with Kiss on that because it makes more sense logically. I mean, why would they let him walk away with that when they just got that?
Well, Peter walked away with it.
Well, he did.
And Peter walked away first.
Yeah, well, I don't think anyone saw the value in it at that point.
No, but the only reason I kind of want to say that Ace retained it longer is if you look at the Kiss My Ass tribute album cover.
They didn't use it.
Yeah, they used Peter's. Peter's was on the forefront. Like, his was like the most visible, and you could see Gene and Paul's makeup. But then they did like some weird sideways triangle thing for what Ace's would have been.
It looked like it was Paul's bandit makeup.
Yeah, you're right. It kind of did.
That's what it was. I don't know. I'm just
thinking, if they owned the rights, why in the world wouldn't they have done it?
Either way, they're in trouble financially here.
Oh,
bad.
yeah.
They're in bad shape. Vinny Poncia also claims he's owed money, and they almost go to litigation for it, for unpaid royalties for the work that he did for the two albums that he did with them.
But they weren't that successful, were they?
Dynasty
he was owed money.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right.
He has them audit their books, and then they audit the audit or some nonsense. I don't know.
Yeah.
They didn't want to go.
Watching the watchers?
They wanted to. And what's interesting here is they wanted to maintain a relationship with this guy, and they didn't want to go into litigation with him. So they eventually negotiated an agreement that made everybody happy.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting to note that they didn't want to piss off Vinny Poncia.
Yeah.
Because maybe they would have brought him back. Who knows? They never do, but it's interesting to think that they rather than dig in and go to the mattresses and say, no, we'll fight for it, they don't. They pay them off. Yeah. But meanwhile, Glickman Marks are going to have to work magic to scramble up funds, secure loans, sell off investments, anything they can to shoestring the budget for the band to exist another year while they're not doing anything, because there's no tour income, there's no album income. Asylum has stalled. It's over. Everything is over. What are they doing? They're going to wait.
And there's going to be a full 20 months before tours.
Yeah. So it's not business as usual, but it's business as usual in the fact that Kiss seems to think that they can do whatever the fuck they want to do.
Yep. And it is interesting in this time. Isn't this the era in which Paul started doing his own solo band for a little bit? Or was that directly after?
That's way later.
Okay. Well, Gene was definitely enjoying himself.
But what Paul is doing at this point is he is lobbying for acting work.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he likes to shoot rubber bands at Gene for the same thing, but it was a priority one with Howard Marks, who is essentially their manager at this point. Mm-hmm. They're self-managed, I guess, but whatever.
And it's funny, I did run across that earlier this week, just reading different sites and stuff. I ran across like his different little small cameo roles and like him trying to do little things. And I'm sitting here going, I was like, he never mentions this.
He never talks about it. He auditioned for a Broadway musical.
That was his thing, was Broadway, the theater.
Yeah, but I mean, he auditioned.
All he talks about is Phantom, though.
But he auditioned for, and this is years, this is not 20 years, but I mean, this is what, close to 15 years before he did that. So we're talking, this is a whole different era here. He auditioned for a Broadway musical. I think it was a musical of the Three Musketeers.
Oh, wow.
I can't even say that with a straight face.
It's like, at least with Phantom of the Opera, that's like kind of cool.
Yeah, but I mean, whatever. I don't know. He has readings scheduled with Hollywood directors. I saw in one of the books, someone named, I guess he had a meeting with William Friedkin, who directed The Exorcist and The French Connection. And if you're a movie nerd, my favorite William Friedkin movie is a movie called Sorcerer, which is not a sword and sorcerer movie. It's about these rogue criminals that take jobs transferring nitroglycerin across a whatever. Yeah, it's a good fucking movie. It's a good movie. To that end, anyway, the band now signs with CAA, Creative Artists Agency. So they've switched booking agencies essentially 4 times in 6 years. They've gone from ATA to ICM, back to ATA. I think ATA gets bought out by ICM. I don't know what's going on here. And now they go to first. Yeah, now they go to CAA. And all of this, though, particularly in this time, the reason why they swing back and forth, the reason why they even went to ICM to begin with, was because they had Hollywood connections. Both members of Kiss, the only 2 members there are in the band, the duo that is Kiss, which we've talked about in the other episodes. Kiss is a duo. They are not a band. The duo of Kiss, both of them have aspirations beyond and outside exceeding Kiss. They want to make it as actors. It just doesn't happen for Paul. Period.
No.
Period.
Which is what I find interesting, because you watch both Gene and Paul in interviews, and like outside of like maybe the late 90s, early 2000s, when it feels like Gene finally started being comfortable in interviews, he would always seem just kind of like almost caveman-y, bulldog in a tutu kind of vibe trying to do an interview. But Paul ate it up. He would enjoy the camera, but like it felt like Gene was trying to figure out the camera. So it's odd that Gene kept getting the roles, but someone like Paul that was artistic and enjoyed the camera wasn't.
Who knows?
And I would read and listen to takes from Paul and Gene about how Paul would put in the work for going to auditions and learning the craft, whereas in his words, Gene would just walk into a meeting or walk onto a set or wherever he had to do. He would just show up and get a role here and there too.
Well, I think part of that had to do with just high visibility. Who was the most recognizable character in Kiss?
Yeah,
and I could see how Paul's kind of now feeling a little stressed on that, because he even kind of mentioned, he goes, it wasn't me sharing the spotlight anymore, it was my spotlight.
It was his spotlight on stage, but he's jealous as fuck, obviously, because he never talks about his failure to make inroads, even though they were working. I mean, Chris Lent in his book talks about this at length. They worked hard to get this to happen for him, up to including switching to CAA. That was essentially primarily for Paul, because Gene had already had a certain level of success with the Hollywood thing.
Yeah. Not
Paul
big, but he at least kind of
but
popped his head in a few places going, hi.
And and honestly, if you go back, like a movie like Runaway, it's a little hammy, sure, but he got pretty good notices for that.
Yeah.
He got considered, they were talking about Gene. Gene got considered, and I think was even offered the part as the lead bad guy in a James Bond movie, which is pretty big.
I feel like he brought that up, but I kind of chalked that up to just Gene-isms.
No, that's legit, and he had to turn it down. Whereas Paul Stanley, I think the best that they're coming up with him is him playing like, cameo roles as a rock star.
Yeah, that's the one thing I've ran across.
I don't know. Anyway, they're
very interesting time period for the band.
It's a very interesting time period because there's so much downtime. There's so much going on,
and it's like, what do they do during the downtime? What do these new versions of Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley do when they can't do Kiss for the moment?
Well, on top of movie roles, Gene's producing acts like Black and Blue and bands
Keel.
like that.
I never listened to that.
Me neither.
He produced Wendell Williams. Have listened to that. So they're doing things, but none of it seems really high profile. I mean, Keel, the Wendell Williams. Wendell Williams in particular, a cult act, very deep, very loyal following.
Oh yeah,
it's not like
not
he's
so much for Keel.
Yeah, it's not like he's producing Bon Jovi or anything like that.
And honestly, in a weird way, it feels like because of the Kiss community, Wendy-O has a little bit more notoriety because the Kiss world is so big that it kind of helps shine that light on such a cult pop artist.
And what the Plasmatics did were so over the top theatrically. It's very memorable. I
find it just interesting in a cool way, not a bad way, but I find it interesting that like Kiss was kind of attracted to that.
Well,
or Gene was, you know what I mean?
Well, I think we all know why Gene was attracted to that.
There's two reasons. Hey, look. Thumbs up. That's all I'm saying. Album is finally recorded in the spring of 1987. And again, the master plan here is to produce a massive hit album that will sell millions and millions and millions of copies, supported by a full 2-year world tour. Some working titles for this album. The one that was pushed the most in the time that it was being produced that I remember was Who Dares Wins.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which military slogan was that?
I don't know where it came from. Apparently, the story as I understood it is
there's a song.
Eric Carr brought that to the band, and apparently that was a working title. Another title that they considered, and I've seen this written correctly and incorrectly. This will just show you how. I mean, this is Spinal Tap. Okay, 120% Spinal Tap. They considered calling the album Condemnation.
Yeah,
not
I read
Condemnation,
that too.
Condemnation.
Yeah.
I
like a play on the word.
I
had
not heard that one.
Condemnation.
There is a fine line
between stupid and clever, and Kiss always seems to fall on the line, on one side of the line, and it's never the clever side. Paul feels that Gene's songs were written by someone else, with Gene putting his name on them.
Again.
The inference, I guess, is that Bruce is primarily responsible for Gene's songs, but who knows? And they record this in you know what? I've lost my information here. I don't know if y'all have it. It's recorded in California, whereas the previous album they had returned to Electric Lady, but now they're working with Ron Nevison, and obviously Nevison has studios that he enjoys working in, and he uses them all. Apparently, I think there's multiple studios used for
3
this.
of them.
Yeah, 3. So we've got Can-Am Recorders in Tarzana, 1-on-1 in Hollywood, and Rumbo in Los Angeles.
I don't think I've heard of any of these places.
Rumbo's the only one that has a link up in Wikipedia.
What you got there?
Notable artists that have recorded there include Megadeth, Guns N' Roses, Fleetwood Mac, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Roy Orbison, Stone Temple Pilots, REO Speedwagon, Smashing Pumpkins.
Okay,
the list goes on and on.
So not necessarily a lightweight studio.
No, I wouldn't think any of them would be. I think if it's Ron Nevison, like I said, he's been a very successful commercial producer. He's got them in his places. Y'all want to go ahead and start tracking this here?
Let's do it.
Title track, Crazy Crazy Nights.
I mean, we started quoting it immediately at the top of the episode.
I like it. Now, I will say, yes, the lyrics can be a bit silly. Yeah, corny. Corny is a good word. It's not cheesy. It's not dumb. It's just a bit corny. But you know what? It's kind of a better take than what we've gotten out of the last few records. Like if we've got to get a Conquer the World, You Are My People, You Are My Crowd, This Is My Music, We Love It Loud. Honestly,
they don't say We Love It Loud. That would be too much of a concession to Gene. They say We Like It Loud.
I always heard love.
No, I noticed that straight away. I was like, they should have said love.
Yeah,
that would have been a nod to themselves, but they don't.
That's honestly,
and I
that's
always
what
took
I thought
that
it
as
was.
a rubber band.
Oh,
he says We Like It Loud. I never understood that. I agree with you. I think this is a decent pop rocker.
Yeah,
but to me, this isn't far off from the direction of the latter era of the classic Kiss, meaning Dynasty, Unmasked. This seems like it's part of that progression.
Right.
It makes sense to me. This whole album feels like that to me. This is where if that band had continued in that direction, they would have still landed in this same spot.
Okay, Russ.
Without, I'm not interested in what the lyrics say there, dude. I'm interested in listening to the actual.
I'm pulling up lyrics and it says We Love It Loud.
Nope, it's We Like It Loud.
Also, something interesting songwriting wise is that a lot more contributions by Adam Mitchell on this one than including this title track than in the last album. I don't think he was involved in Asylum at all, but Adam Mitchell comes back in a big bad way on this record.
Yeah, but this seems like a progression of where they were at, and this track as a single was a big hit in the UK, and is reaching as high as number 4 on the UK charts, which is interesting. But I don't think this is a bad song. It's not my favorite Kiss song, but of the 80s output, I think this sounds closer to a classic Kiss kind of vibe. I think I can see them landing in the same spot, even if they had skipped The Elder, Creatures of the Night, Animalize, and Asylum.
I remember the key change on the second chorus always messing with me when I was younger. I'm like, why did they do that so soon? And then go back to the original key for the third part, and then doing the key change again on the.
Man.
I know it, but it's like it felt like a little soon for it,
Second song, I'll Fight Hell to Hold You.
Dips down a little bit for me at this point.
Here's what I got. Paul Stanley is developing this formulaic songwriting style that copies other people's ideas. Where we've talked about him being a stylist. He's always been good at this, but now it's like I'm hearing him. It's like he's trying to copy other people's ideas, but now he's, instead of stylizing them and making them Paul Stanley songs, he's doing those songs.
He's just doing a rip.
Like this, I hear an influence of Kenny Loggins' Danger Zone.
Yeah.
I think he even says we're in the danger zone in this song, and maybe
I
that's
can
what
hear that
tips
too.
me off. This is montage music. And Paul has fallen into this rut. That's what he writes. He writes music that's basically montage music. It's at the same level as these disposable film soundtrack montage songs, you know? And I'm surprised that none of this ever got picked up, because I can see any one of these songs on this album being the montage music in Top Gun.
Yeah. Or Karate Kid.
Or in Rocky 5 or whatever movie's out at that time. We're gonna do it, and I'll fight hell to hold you. You know,
very synth heavy.
Yeah, and but they're not really. It's not that it's. I don't know what's good about this song.
I will say at the very top of this, I actually am a fan of Crazy Nights. Like, out of all the non-makeup records, this is the one I can honestly go back to and listen to a little bit more. I just feel like there's a little bit more quality. This song is not one of them.
All right. Well,
that's at least.
What do you got? Anything?
I got nothing on that. I mean, I think it's the skipper. I mean,
well,
in the context of the rest of these Kiss records I've been playing to death in my car and headphones in the last few weeks. This is definitely in my bottom three.
Next song.
As much as I hate how stupid it is, I could not stop singing it at all this week.
The song is called
Bang. Bang You.
Bang Bang You. Fuck me.
Love Gun Part 2?
No, because we all discussed that. I think that was kind of an unusual move. That I think we all decided Love Gun was like one of the weakest tracks on the Love Gun album.
Mm-hmm. But it even says on the song, I'm going to shoot you with my love gun, baby.
Yeah. I'll shoot you down with my love gun, baby.
If this is Love Gun Part 2, it's not. It's like that sequel. It's like The Exorcist to The Exorcist, and only we decided that we didn't like Love Gun that good.
Hey, Texas Chainsaw.
No, I like
2
Texas
is fun.
Chainsaw 2. This song just fucking sucks.
This song has the same problem. I forget the other song from Asylum I mentioned. Take out all the lyrics. It's a good song. The music is cool. I like the music a lot. It feels exciting. It's a fun guitar riff. For everything this album is trying to achieve, this song achieves it, except for the lyrics. The lyrics are horrible. I cannot defend that.
There's a lot of horrible lyrics on this album.
There's a lot of bad lyrics, especially on this song. But again, I don't know. I have a weird affinity with this record. Again, Cap, you were even saying you catch yourself singing this song. Part of it is the catchiness of the rhythm of the guitars. Like, the music itself is actually good. That's my defense.
And Cap, your opinion?
It's trash.
Wrong! oh yeah, it is trash.
Yeah, I was about to say, wait.
I was gonna say it's bad no matter what you say.
It's fun. It's fun, but it's trash.
This is like watching the Jerry Springer show.
Wrong! It's not fun. It's just trash.
It's like watching Jerry Springer. You're just like, God, I wouldn't want to be a part of this, but I'm still watching it.
This is one of the few that gets a Desmond Child
this is Desmond Child.
He's not on this record a whole lot, oddly enough.
No.
Let me guess, you agree.
Well, I haven't said anything yet. Before I go into my opinion of this song,
all right,
let's hear what y'all got.
I think this is a very. This sounds like a hot mess. It feels like they did this in one take, and they were just like, good enough.
And interestingly, it's the first Gene song we get, and it's 4 tracks in. Usually he gets song 2 or 3. So it is interesting that he's all the way 4th on the record. And in my opinion, this sounds like they were getting into the studio to record Crazy Nights, and they were like, all right, Bruce, Eric, go ahead and give me some sounds so we can kind of get like the board right. You know, all 3 of us here have been in the recording studio. We know that process. Well, you know what? While they were getting everything checked in the studio, they just went ahead and pressed record.
Yeah.
And then Gene was like, I can put lyrics on top of this.
Yeah, that's the impression I get
really
too.
what it feels like. It sounds like they're just jamming, getting tones right, and then they just put lyrics to it.
Because like the bass is kind of like off here and there too with the... I don't know. It also almost sounds like they tried to go for the Hot for Teacher vibe, but didn't pull it off.
That at the front, with Bruce trying to be that guy, which is what was required. But this is my favorite song on the album.
Really?
Absolutely.
Really?
By far.
Explain.
Because it's just a tight, powerful little rocker.
It's not tight. That's my problem with it.
But if it's tight but loose, if you want to use the Led Zeppelin vernacular.
It's also a very interesting song for Gene.
It's got a drive, it's got an energy and an intensity. I like that there's a part where in the pre-chorus where they're still playing fast, but the vocal melody slows kind of over the top. I just think it's a strong song, and I think this could have been the opening song. And
I will say it works good. It's a good live song because I've seen
it works good as what it is. It's the most rocking song on this album.
But to me, it just felt like a jam song.
Close.
It didn't just feel like that's what I meant by the setting up in the studio and just
agree
pressing
with you.
record.
Yeah, I think this is the best song on the album. But
and again, Gene trying to be the.
It's just, I think it's because it's just a powerful, hard rocking song. Again, spiritually, it seems to descend from some of their more rocking material from the 70s. And this is where they do things really, really well. I mean, we've talked about Kiss being a pop band. And the reason why this album, I think, has hit both of y'all going back and revisiting it is because it plays into their strength as pop songwriters.
Well, my favorite song on this record is a fucking pop song through and through.
This is not a pop song here, but it's still a pretty rocking little song. Hell or High Water.
To me, I like this better than No No No.
Okay,
it sticks with me better than No 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 just because of how it's one of my favorite Gene tracks on this album, if not my favorite one overall.
I think it's probably his to date best material, or this is one of his better songs from any of the records.
I like this one, but I think it flounders on the chorus.
Yeah,
but they do that a lot. We've talked about that in previous episodes.
That's just a problem they have sometimes.
They work and they get to the chorus and then they just don't know where to go with it.
But it's not too bad. The part that's weak is Gene's just doing the "Gonna hold you" and then letting everyone else do it. I feel like if they had more of the gang chorus, or if Gene had something else to say during that part, it would have been cooler.
I think it'd be better with a different chorus. But the verse part, I mean, it's deeply rooted in his Beatle hooks. You can can't escape it, and it's like, but he does it in such a way that he has an ability. Like we talked about Paul being a stylist, Gene isn't really a stylist so much, but he can take something.
Gene's a chameleon.
He can take he's hard to dig him out of his Beatle thing. If you listen to it, you'll start hearing that stuff. And this is a good example. It's like ordinarily you wouldn't necessarily catch that, but just the way it kind of the vocal melody is really what does it for me. But he does it in a way that has a sense of style organically that Paul can't achieve artificially.
Right.
In this era.
Yeah.
Paul's done it really well. But we talked about on the last album, it's like we talked about
past few records.
We talked about crazy, I Fight Hell to Hold You being kind of a copying of what was going on.
And there's another example of that later on, but we'll get to it.
Well, the next track, My Way. Okay. What the fuck is this shit and why?
Again.
Wanna talk like I talk, walk like I walk.
That's the only part that sticks with me.
Yeah. Do.
And then it's that
This
weird.
could be Rocky 4, or maybe Footloose. It's a montage.
Again, this is just Desmond Child written all over this too, especially on that minor intro in the verse.
Would this have worked for anybody?
No.
This
really does. Like, I like this record, and I like this in spite of myself, because again, this is the kind of cheesy I like. But if we're looking at like good rock and roll song, no, this is not. But there is a cheese factor to this song I really do like.
I think, I can see that.
Yeah.
And
especially the verses,
maybe,
the heat is on.
I'm surprised that this wasn't.
And your back's against the wall. There's a cheese factor.
It's Paul climbing that mountain, man.
80s pop cheese.
And you know what, Russ? He's going to do him.
Yeah. There's no one there's no woman that ever loved Paul as much as he's loved himself.
Yeah.
He's got a full-length standing mirror with a glory hole in it. So he can fuck himself.
That took kind of a second. He kind of reared back and
So-
like, wait. Oh.
So, but for real, I mean, I hate this song, but I don't understand why this wasn't pushed as a single, because I
Right.
could see it
Or used in a movie,
maybe
or-
doing it. But
Well,
to
because
me,
there's a
it's
few
still-
other better ones.
I mean, you know, I heard this and I had to go back. I made this joke before we started recording today. I had to go back in my head to the movie Boogie Nights when Dirk Diggler's singing, "You got the touch."
Yep.
You got the power. Of course, he's butchering it. And then I didn't know until after, you know, that was a reference. That was a song from a
Transformers movie.
from a cartoon movie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the level these songs are written at.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or
And-
Kenny Loggins, or
It's not good rock and roll music. This guy, Paul Stanley, has declined, whatever the word is. He's just fallen
Another
into
Desmond
this,
Child co-write,
and
too.
and he sits there and goes,
And Bruce Turgon.
yeah, I looked. I couldn't find much on him. Other
So
than he's
Paul
worked
wasn't
with,
the only one responsible for this.
Yeah,
and that's a Desmond Child help, too.
He's more involved with, or he got involved with Foreigner and Lou Gramm, who sang with Foreigner as well.
Yeah.
well, we talked on the previous episode, like, what if Gene and Paul had been writing together? What would we have gotten? It would have been any different. You know, Paul feels like he's having to write this by himself, but in his mind, you've got to stop and consider that this is the material he thinks is going to put them at the same level as Bon Jovi and Def Leppard and Whitesnake. You know,
And it is
these
so-
bands are selling 12 million, 15 million copies of their records. 10, 12, 15. I mean, that's insane. You know, this
Well,
is
and
what he
again-
thinks is going to sell 12 million records.
Well, it's interesting, too, because there's so many co-writes between, like, Paul and Bruce. And then, like, No is Gene, Bruce, and Eric. That's it. Like, they're the only people that wrote that song. So, like, all of Kiss wrote that song except for Paul.
And that's
And
like the
Paul does
hardest
a lot-
track.
Yeah.
Hardest track on the whole album.
Yeah, and it's like, and Paul does a lot of writes with, like, Bruce. But, like, he, again, what you mentioned in the last episode, he does not do a lot of co-writes with Gene, and that's what's just interesting about it, is Gene will write stuff with the whole band. Paul will write stuff with one or two members every so often, but never Gene, or rarely Gene.
Okay, side 2, When Your Walls Come Down.
Liar, caught your pants on fire.
So here's what I picture. I listened to this, and I'm like, this is the first time I've listened to this album in over 30 years.
Right.
Okay. This is the last Kiss album that I bought with my own money.
Okay.
So
Never again.
and I can, you know, now I listen to it and I picture frat boys in polo shirts and backwards baseball caps driving Camaros with golf clubs in the trunk.
This was frat music in the 80s.
You know, this is their idea of hard rock. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
not going to listen to like Metallica, but they'll listen to Kiss. They're not
Yeah.
going to listen to Iron Maiden, but they'll listen to Van Halen.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And to them, this is what they think is badass rock and roll.
We're talking Sammy Hagar era Van Halen at this point.
It just does nothing for me. It did nothing for me when I was a kid. There's a reason why this was the last Kiss, because there was so much hype to this album as a Kiss fan, because you waited 2 years for it to come out. You know, they were going to get the right guy. This was going to be, you know, this was kind of sold as what they believed it was going to be, this giant record. This was going to be the return of Kiss, the comeback, the one.
Now, this is my least favorite on the record.
And this is what we get.
Yeah, no, out of all the songs, this definitely is my least favorite song.
I do like the one little riff that's in the chorus. That's the only part I think is cool about this song. Again, another Adam Mitchell co-write.
Next song, Reason to Live.
You mean, Is This Love by Whitesnake? It's exactly what this fucking song is.
I never thought of that.
I don't listen to White Snakes. That's why I was being quiet. I'm like, I will defer.
Okay, no, wait a minute. Which White Snake song is it they recorded in like 1980, 81, and then they came back and did a second version that was a big hit?
Oh,
Was it that?
Fuck. No. That's something. That's a different song. Is This Love is the very synth-driven
I know, but
one.
there was
oh,
one
you're
that was
thinking
another ballad.
Ain't Fool for Your Love and No More. I think that's what you're talking about.
Well, that too, but okay. Well, I don't know.
Either way,
I don't hate Whitesnake. I just hated that era of Whitesnake.
David Coverdale is a great fucking singer. He's one of my favorite 70s rock singers from his era of Deep Purple.
I've always preferred the David Coverdale Mark III version of Deep Purple
with Glenn Hughes.
With
Me
Glenn
too.
Hughes to the classic Gillan stuff, and I love the classic Gillan stuff too. But anyway, whatever. We're going off point. Yeah, this I can see that. I think that was probably heavily influenced by that. I
think so.
I don't know though, because I think it came out around the same time or the same era.
You might be right.
So
I think that Whitesnake
I think
album
it was
came out
just
the
a
same
stylistic similarity. I don't know that the one would have influenced the other. It's a baby step above his formulaic montage music. I think it's okay. It works, I guess, to a degree. Like I said, I think it's a better song.
I was gonna say the verse definitely feels a little montagey with the synthesizer doing those two notes over and over. The
right.
That's very much main protagonist walking down the street, deep in thought kind of vibes.
But the chorus is what
the
puts us
chorus
over.
is awesome. I like the chorus a lot. It's big. It's a really strong Paul vocal.
This works backwards than his normal songwriting.
Right.
He's really
actually got a strong chorus.
He gets to set up and then fails on the chorus. This has a bad setup, but that chorus is okay. It's not something I would listen to on the regular.
Honestly,
but it
I like
works
what
a lot better than what his other stuff has done on this.
I like what they do after the solo. And they kick back into the
another change.
Well, no, when they kick back into the verse, the chorus again, Bruce is doing extra guitar licks on top. So there's like a little kind of hold throughs. So those little moments kind of add to the chorus even more. So no,
this was the song they earmarked as being the one to push over the album too.
Really?
Yeah, they thought this was the song that was going to make this the album.
I think it's still in a few songs. I think that's the one they should have pushed.
But that's the one they did.
Right.
What's your opinion? You got an opinion?
Still feels like it's a great, from a songwriting perspective, it's great, but it still feels like
It's not
schmaltzy.
great. It's not great.
It's not great. It works for what they're trying to do.
It works for what they're trying.
But it still feels like just very like polished,
Right,
kind of
right.
neutered
Yep.
80s,
Yep.
synth.
It's
ballad.
absolutely neutered, but it's still fun.
I don't know.
like a brand new shelter puppy dog, neutered but still fun.
But it's Kiss. That's the thing. It's Kiss. It's like, oh, why? Come on.
Good Girl Gone Bad. Meh song.
This one's very
gone meh.
It's very meh. I don't like this either.
This is my note. This is all I'm going to say about it. It's hard to have any opinions on this material because it's just so boring. I just don't have. It's not interesting to me. It's not exciting. It's just
utterly forgettable.
I don't understand. I just don't. I have a hard time wrapping my head around what the appeal of stuff like this is to people. Like what it says about somebody when they come up and go, Crazy Crazy Nights is like their best album.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
it's like I like it, but it's not my
what is
favorite.
it now? Now you're telling me something about yourself.
I learned an awful lot about you.
I'm serious. It's like, and I hate to judge people based on their musical taste, but you can tell the kind of people they are often by what they really like.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just like, really? And you're the kind of guy that like watches like golf on a Saturday afternoon. Like,
Yeah.
I can't imagine a more boring spectator sport. And I'm not a sports fan anyway. But you know what I really am not interested in watching? Golf or tennis.
He's lining up for the putts.
It's like the guy that watches fishing, What's the comedian is like,
hey man,
I'm not even fishing. I'm watching fishing on TV.
Hey man, Bill Dance
Too
is a
lazy
national
to
treasure.
It's like, how'd you like to be the guy to edit that show? Be like, no, he's just baiting the hook.
I think that was
Brian Regan.
Brian Regan, yeah.
But that's how I feel about this music. There's nothing about it at all that gets me go. It's like classic Kiss, the anthemic, put your fist in the air. Or even any other good hard rock, driving hard rock of the time, But there's a lot of bands that are falling prey to this. It's not just Kiss. But some bands are able to work that to their advantage. You got, again, we've talked about this, Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, Whitesnake. They're getting huge.
or even hard at this time period. It worked for them because of their aesthetic.
Yeah, but but then you've got bands like Judas Priest and Ozzy that are falling down this same trap, producing the same kind of meh kind of material at this time. Heavy meh.
Oh.
Sorry.
See, I keep giggling to myself because one of the co-writes on here is Peter Diggins. And
who?
Well, that exactly. It's a nobody name, but you know how stupid things will become memes and like trendy for a second. That was like a name used for something, and it was like not Peter Diggins. So that's like the thing I'm thinking of now. It's like, God damn it, Peter Diggins, you ruined this song.
With David Segerson. The other co-write?
I don't know.
Probably the guys.
We'll just blame Diggerson.
Yeah. Diggerson and Diggins and Sigerson. Probably the guys that actually wrote the song.
Yeah.
Turn on the Night.
I love this song.
Really?
I love this song. This is the song I feel like they should have led with.
This was a single.
Well, led with, meaning like this album is called Turn on the Night. Like this.
Oh, yeah, I got you. Yeah.
So it's like this is what they should have led with. This is the best foot forward. Out of everything on this record, it feels like it's the most thought through song. Because the vocal melody with the guitars work, everything kind of lines up. You listen to it from a songwriting standpoint. It's the most cohesive on this entire record. It's got a catchy chorus. The lyrics don't make you want to like gouge your fingers in your gouge your thumbs in your ears rather.
Right.
It's like, so especially after dealing with stuff like No 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 and Bang Bang You lyric wise, this song's pretty damn good. And this, I don't know, it's catchy, and I feel like this one really should have just been way more popular than it was. And this is unashamedly in a few of my like regular rotation playlists.
Paul's first co-write with Diane Warren. If you don't know her name, you've definitely heard her work.
Yeah, that's the queen of like mediocrity right there.
Nothing's gonna stop us. She wrote that one.
Didn't she write that big Aerosmith song from that movie?
From Armageddon. She wrote the Armageddon Aerosmith song.
She also helped with If I Could Turn Back Time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there you go. Not exactly a lightweight.
Yeah, I mean, she's had huge, giant, massive hits.
But
Because You Loved Me from Celine Dion.
And we'll get to it.
Sure, that was probably huge. I mean, that's probably sold more records of that single.
I Don't Want to Miss a Thing.
Yeah, that's the one we're talking about.
So yeah, sorry. I was reading it. You know how sometimes if you're reading,
getting
you're not
distracted.
Sorry, I'm trying to help.
But yeah,
to me, this sounds like a beer commercial.
It does, though.
Turn on the night, Bud Light.
Exactly.
I can't deny it. I can't deny it.
That and Poison, who are going to be like super huge within a year. They're already super huge, really. They came out of nowhere with that
Talk Dirty to Me,
which openly apes Cheap Trick.
Yeah.
Unashamedly. But they had a song called Nothing But a Good Time.
Yeah, which is a Kiss riff.
And it don't get better than this, which was the tagline for a fucking beer commercial.
Yep.
And it sounded like beer commercial music. Even when I was a kid, I would look at it cynically because it just was bad. It was bad music. I was like, they're not even trying. They're just they're using beer commercial slogans.
They were the bro country of the fucking 80s.
They were. And then
I'll fight anybody who disagrees with me.
No, I'm not saying, but I agree with you. I think all things being even, it makes sense. What you just said, that being even the title of the album, all of that makes sense. Lead with that, follow it up with Crazy Crazy Nights,
because
and
honestly,
then drive
that
it home
song
with
feels like a
Reason to Live
second
It.
song.
Maybe that would have worked as a different strategy. Maybe that would have pushed this album. I don't think so, because I just don't think the reason why this album doesn't parallel these other albums they're trying to do is because it's just not as good. Simple, plain and simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just isn't as good.
I think it's a fine song, though, despite all of the 80s cliches that come along with it. It's a pretty good 80s pop song.
It closes out with Thief in the Night.
Another Night.
Also recorded by Wendy O. Williams, we talked about on the previous album. it just seems to me that Wendy O. Williams at this point has a better grasp of hard rock than what Kiss does.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not as successful. She's not as successful as this is, but
And
it
although
just
I
seems
don't-
like she has more, you know, and not to use a sexist analogy here, but, you know, because when I say this, I'll explain it. She has bigger balls than Kiss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, she had-
sometimes the balls ain't the balls between your legs. Sometimes it's standing on the balls of your feet. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there's a
She commanded the stage.
she had power and energy and charisma and intensity. I don't think her bands were that necessarily that good, especially by this point, this era. I think
But
the Plasmatics
she-
are great. Yeah, well, I don't. It's funny because in the Plasmatics, I think there's a point where she wasn't that good of a front person, and she became a good front person. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, it was just out of sync. If she had that persona that she had that she had developed by this point, if she had that with the Plasmatics, maybe the Plasmatics would have been a bigger thing. I don't know, because the Plasmatics is, especially that first record, is fucking killer.
Yeah.
Great front to back. But what are you gonna do? Let's talk about for a minute here.
Also, I want to add, there's no Alan Schwartzberg in sight on this record for once.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Interesting to know.
It's all Eric.
Some unused song titles.
Yeah.
Well, real quick, Thief in the Night. I don't know. I don't like this one necessarily, but it's not like the worst Gene song. Like, it feels like it's
No,
a moment
it's not.
he's trying to kind of maybe find
I
his
don't think
old
it's- I agree.
persona
I
a
agree.
little bit.
That's why I say I think Wendy O had a better grasp of this than Kiss did.
Yeah, but it did feel like he was trying to find a little bit of his old persona and make it work with no makeup, like
Right.
Thief in the Night. Okay, that feels like something
I don't think
Gene would
Gene
sing.
needed a persona. I think Gene was a persona. That's part of the problem here is
Yeah.
that they think they need these personas because they had them so deeply entrenched into them as characters in Kiss.
But the persona is the makeup.
It wasn't the makeup. The persona was the guy behind
Well, yeah,
it.
yeah.
That's the, you know, and they haven't figured that out yet. And they're never going to figure it out. Ever.
Okay.
No.
I feel like they did at one point.
This is it.
I was waiting for something like that.
Ever. They will never,
We'll
ever figure it out.
we'll discuss that in a
We
few
will.
albums.
We will. Absolutely, we will. But I came across this and I had such a good time seeing this. Because
Okay.
I have to note these unused songs. X marks the spot.
Are ye mateys?
Here comes one. Are you ready? What goes up? Get it? Get it? What goes up? This is some Spinal Tap
Wait a
shit.
minute. Must come down.
That's not even my favorite
You
one.
know, you never know. That might have been the lyric. Dial L for love.
I've heard that one. Yeah.
We've talked about Calling Dr. Love. That was kind of a dumb title. The whole thing of Calling Dr. Love was dumb, but it worked. It was so fucking good.
This is the derivative
This is of something that really wasn't that good of an idea to begin with. But are you ready? I like this one. Are you always this hot?
That's my favorite one just because of how
Ooh, girl, you always this hot. No, the one that takes the cake though, the absolute. This might be the bottom. I don't know because we've never. Well, thank God we've never heard this. Scratch and sniff.
Oh no! No,
you can't make this shit up.
No,
That is
I'm
smell
sorry,
the-
Kiss fans.
that is smell the glove.
You cannot make this shit up unless you're Gene or Paul.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
You're right. That is smell the glove. Scratch and sniff. Oh my god!
Imagine if that had been like the name of the album and they had a scratch and sniff
For $200.
on a panty, on a picture of a girl's panty. You know, and you don't have a Bobby Fleckman going, and you don't find this offensive? You don't find this offensive?
Everyone's house cat
Gene
loves
Simmons
this.
going, I'm Gene Simmons of Kiss.
Somebody's dog's just like,
What's wrong with being sexy?
Everyone's-
No, sexist.
Everyone's household cat is like obsessed with this album cover now.
Yeah. It's like, why is the cats always going to the Christ. And you know, I can't imagine for a second that we're having this conversation as a joke, that the exact same conversation was held for the exact length of time, only
Being
in all
serious.
seriousness.
Like, guys, what if, like,
But listen, what if we made the album cover and it was like a picture of a girl's panties, but you scratched and sniffed it?
It smells like my balls.
It'd be like Gene. It goes, what if we had an album cover that had the girl's panties and you scratched and sniffed it? And Paul would go, I don't understand.
Cut to the Black Crowes album cover with the...
Which was an old cover from a Hustler magazine.
With a little bit of... a couple of pubic hairs hanging out.
Yeah.
They got in trouble for that,
Yeah,
too.
but it was, it's whatever. This was released on September 21st, 1987. That is a release date. That was my birthday. So happy birthday to me, Russ. Here's a shitty Kiss album for you.
Again, I'm still amazed by like the fast turnaround times of this. Like, it was recorded from March to June of 87 and released in September. Like, that's a fast turnaround time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they were trying to get it rolling.
Well, this is like consistent with every record.
It was mixed pretty quick, which is
impressed.
Yeah,
because regardless of
they were ready. I'm sure they had it scheduled and ready.
Yeah,
these guys probably had a deadline, knowing we got to get here. But it was certified gold on November 17th and platinum on February 18th. So it has sold 1 million copies,
but not 12.
But it didn't sell the 12. This was regarded as a failure, really. The cover had to give each member... Well, we'll talk about that. But it comes out... The cover, Paul had the idea of it, wanted it to be like a shattered glass effect.
He said actually modeled after all his old guitars. Like, he was looking at the guitar and was like, this would actually be a cool album cover.
But everyone had to have an equal space.
Yep.
And
I've actually heard interviews with the artist of that album cover, and they said that was a painstakingly done process. Same thing with the guitars, because they can't just like cut or at least the technology at the time and available to these type of people, you couldn't cut the glass. Well, meaning like workshop.
What type of people are you talking about?
Well, like independent
artist types.
Yes, artist types and independent contractors.
Why are you so prejudiced against artist types?
Not backed by big multi-million-dollar companies with large professional machines. You couldn't get exact glass cuts. You could get it like super deep, but you still had to like break it and cut it in a certain way. So it's like, to get all those pieces to line up, they had to literally like shave and carve down different spots and make it look organic shattered. They couldn't just shatter the glass, because if you shatter it, you get 1 million tiny little pieces.
Exactly.
Especially directly in the center. So that shatter is completely man-made. And he said the amount of cuts and blood that they had to clean up from either the guitars and this album cover just to make it look right was ridiculous.
How hard could it be, though?
But then when you come up with it, it's a mediocre cover.
Like all that hard work,
it just doesn't. I don't know. I mean, it's not that bad of a cover, honestly. I never thought it was that bad. You're moving into the CD era,
it's better than
less,
the other.
Huh?
It's better than Asylum.
Oh, by far.
Yeah, so it's at least that.
But I don't know.
I agree with that.
But album covers seemingly aren't as important as they had once were, because it was the CD cover. I mean, look at "Slippery When Wet" by Bon Jovi.
Name an iconic.
Well, that's a shitty album cover.
Name an iconic album cover from the late '80s outside of "Appetite for Destruction."
Yeah, there you go. That's a good point. That's a good point.
And I think that's only so popular because it was so simplistic and bold looking.
Well, that wasn't even the original album cover.
No, there was
the
no
cover. Got shoved on the inside. It was a Robert Williams painting. But whatever. The back cover seems to be of two different photo sessions, because Paul's is a little bit different. If you look,
it's got coloring, a deeper red.
Which makes me wonder if Paul did a solo photo shoot just on his own for whatever God knows reason, and really liked it and was like, well, I want this to be the back cover photo, but we got to get, a cohesiveness. So they recreated it as best they could. I don't know.
Well, the thing is you brought that up before the show, and I'd never really thought about it. But here's the thing. I'm looking like, okay, so for listeners that don't know,
it's one of the deeper red kind of a background.
Yeah, but one of the things I do is I do a lot of Photoshop and editing, so it's like I look for tiny little details that sometimes people don't immediately think to look at, and sometimes those are like shading on faces, the way the hair contrasts into different portions of other colors on the skin and on the clothing, because that can sometimes denote airbrushing and touching up. When you look at Paul's definition and the amount of contrast used on his body versus Bruce that's directly underneath him, it almost looks like a completely different camera was used.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's a different predecessor.
So I'm just saying, but that's what like really kind of sparked me on that, because I never looked at it that closely. But ever since you brought up just the ever since you just brought up the red background,
really liked looking at it closely.
I looked at Bruce.
You wanted to look at Paul's
lies.
so close. No,
but I find it interesting though, because Paul's is kind of seductive.
Well,
so that would be an interesting,
like giving us a panty flash here.
Yeah.
And his panties are fucking G-string panties.
And that's what kind of
Paul's wearing panties, y'all.
And that's what kind of leads me to even agree with you further. This seems like a personal photo shoot from Paul.
Yeah, or maybe from an unrelated home video. I don't know. I'm being obnoxious. I shouldn't.
Because
say that.
everyone else seems kind of band related.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And it's more of a brownish hue. I don't know. Who knows?
Just the hairiest abs of all time too.
And Paul's trying to be like the sexy rock guy. All of this has been calculated to try to sell as many records as they possibly can, because they're trying to become as big as Bon Jovi. And it becomes Chris Lent writes in his book, it was almost a joke that the mantra in their office was, did Bon Jovi do it?
Ugh.
Did Bon Jovi do it? Did Bon Jovi do it?
Yep.
Because Kiss are clearly in explicit. We've talked about this. They're just absolutely following at this point. However, now they're putting together their tour, and they're putting dates on sale for a tour, and it's becoming apparent as you go into October that this is not going to be what they thought it was going to be.
Starting to get flashbacks.
The initial shows are put on sale and do poorly, and the band decides, nope, we're not touring. They cancel their tour briefly, or they talk about canceling.
Yeah.
And Howard Marks is the one who says, no.
You're going to go out there and you're going to dance, monkeys.
And, the tour's put together featuring a new stage. It's a very scaled back production from their previous runs. It retains the big 20-foot logo that they had on the Asylum tour we talked about in the previous episode.
Because good Lord, you can't get rid of that after spending all that much money on that thing.
But I like that. I still like it. I talk about it again. I really liked it. I thought that's the one update that they could benefit from.
I did like the fact that it was huge.
Yeah, it really made up for
it made a statement.
For the lack of a backline. But what they have now for their backdrop is a semicircle ramp. It's just a very boring stage. It's very plain. It's very gray.
Yeah.
It's not very bright. I want to say it retained
kind of
that.
Dark.
I think they retained the lightning bolt stair rails on each side.
Yeah. It's missing a few bulbs on it.
There is, for the first time ever, an auxiliary musician hired to play with the band. His name is Gary Corbett, a keyboardist named Gary Corbett.
It's behind the curtain.
And he is not on the stage with the band. He's hidden off stage and plays anonymously. But his deal is also to fill out the sound, and is also to trigger sound effects to try to make up for the scaled back effects that they've got.
Yeah. So this was the beginning era of the thing that I've always had a problem with. And they've kept this all throughout the rest of the years. They just haven't really talked about it. This was when they started pumping out bomb noises and extra crowd noises through the PA.
See, now, did they do that? Crowd noise?
I know for a fact, at least the bomb noises.
I saw this tour.
Well, I was just saying, even like the tour I saw, it was that Motley Crue Kiss tour. Even on that one, my head was like right next to a speaker column, and they were still pumping the bomb noises.
Yeah.
And that just felt weird. And this was before the whole Paul Stanley lip syncing thing. This was years before it.
Maybe.
It definitely was. And, hearing his vocal performance, it was definitely before Paul's lip syncing.
This tour commences on November 13th in Jackson, Mississippi, which is where they ran their, their stage production and everything. That was pretty standard for all their tours. would take the arena for a week to do to fine tune the show,
and they actually did a little preview show August 8th. That was the day that they were recording the Crazy Nights and Reason to Live music video, and then afterward they did like a little 3-song set, which they also brought back Won't Get Fooled Again as the outro.
White Lion is the opening act, but they split off within 2 weeks as their own popularity begins to exceed Kisses, which is pretty funny to see that, and I actually saw White Lion around the same time open for Ace Frehley on Ace Frehley's first solo run. We'll talk about that a little bit, I think, on the next episode.
I was going to say
we'll dip into. I don't want to dip into their solo stuff, but we'll touch on that.
You don't want to do a whole Fraley's Comet episode, Russ?
I don't think so.
I don't.
Why
either.
not?
Because I don't even like a whole Fraley's Comet album.
Why not? Do you not hear the sarcasm in my voice?
Yes, I know. But I'm putting it, can you hear the serious in mine? The answer is no.
What about the Peter Criss? The Criss albums?
I mean, we're doing this because I wanted to do this because there's a lot of Kiss that I liked at one point and no longer like. There's a point in Kiss that I stopped liking them. I wanted to explore this beyond just the original lineup. That's the reason why, somebody hit us on Facebook saying, if you guys hate the 80s, y'all probably should have just stopped at that point, which is a fair and valid point. And I initially considered that to doing it that way. But then I thought, no, let's go ahead and track this out. I don't want to just go, that sucks. I want to go, okay, that really doesn't suck. I want to be able to say that.
Yeah.
And we have, I think, on all of these albums.
We have been able to find
tried
something.
To be objective, but it's not enough just to say something sucks. I want to know why it sucked and be able to explain it and discuss it in detail. So that's what really kind of what we're finding ourselves doing here. It's not something I want to do. I don't want to hate on these records, but there's a reason why I don't like them. And here's a chance to explain, hopefully in detail, why and why I think people are wrong about, especially an album like this one,
It's fun to look
even though that this album to me still stylistically and fundamentally is a lot closer to what classic Kiss was in its approach. And I can see a line being, again, like I said, drawn through Dynasty to Unmasked, 2 Crazy Nights, bypassing all that they had done. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent. The tour after White Lion drops off on December 9th in Erie, Pennsylvania, they pick up Terrible Uncle Ted. Ted.
Odd choice for 1987.
Ted Nugent.
Ted
Nugent, 1987, who'd also kind of followed the same route as Kiss, had been pretty successful in the late 70s. And now his career is kind of on a decline. It's interesting, though, they take Ted because they have to pay Ted more than they would most opening acts because Ted's got a higher profile and is considered more of a draw. But that's precisely the reason why they are willing to do it, because they want to add to their draw. It doesn't.
I was going to say, it's not like he was having big hits in that time period either. Like, this was even before Damn Yankees with that resurgence.
They had another problem from what I saw personally, we'll talk about here in a minute. He remains with this tour for the next 3 months, which is the majority of the tour. The last show before the holiday break was at the Brendan Byrne Arena, which I believe is their only New York City appearance on this run.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of taking a look through here, and I'm not seeing any
I don't think they don't go back to Madison Square Garden. You would think that they would have gotten that date off the success of the previous one. Excuse me.
Yeah, I'm seeing like Glen Falls, New York.
They draw a respectable audience of 15,000, which is really fucking good. That would have been a sellout at Madison Square Garden, I believe.
Yeah.
Gary Corbett is let go as a cost-cutting measure. However, on January 8th in Chicago, who's back? Gary Corbett.
We just need you off for a little bit.
And then an important thing happens. On January 14th in Cleveland, Ohio, the band calls a meeting with Glickman Marks. Carl Glickman himself is unable to attend, but the principals of the corporation, or whatever you want to call it, is there. Howard Marks is there. Chris Lynn is there. David Weinbaum is there. We're going to touch on this more on the next episode, but Kiss are very unhappy with the way everything has resulted. at this meeting, Howard Marks sees the writing on the wall. And he privately confers with Chris Lent and says, if we can come up with some sort of bogus play, he doesn't use that word.
Right.
But they basically try to, he's like, man, if we can just show them a projection of earning $5 million income over the next 2 years, that'd really be good. Let's do that. And so Chris Lent and Dave Weidenbaum start to try to figure out a way to cook the books to make it look like that's what's going to happen here.
And that always works out well in everyone's favor.
But it's beyond even a symbolic fix. So the group obviously feel as if they've been deceived and mismanaged, although the paperwork supports the truth. And they just never listened. And moreover, they are now neck deep into a tour with an album that is obviously not going to be the big, major, huge comeback that they had planned for.
I mean, successful, but not as major as they were hoping.
Yeah, but this tour isn't even as successful as the Asylum tour, which itself saw a decline in attendance from the Animalized tour.
Wow.
Which is crazy because I don't know. I feel even objectively that this is a better album than both of them.
It doesn't matter. It didn't work.
Yeah.
And that's not what we're talking about.
I know. But it's still just like
there
shocking.
There are Kiss nerds out there. They're like, Crazy Nights is their best album. Yeah, but guess what? It didn't do
anything for them.
It just didn't do it. It didn't get them where they wanted to be. And of course, they refused to make any further cutbacks. And the meeting is adjourned with no real decision or progress made. Business as usual. And they hit the road. Or they're back, they're on the road. But,
right.
On January 29th, they do make the concession of cutting Gary Corbett once again.
You're in and you're in. You're in and you're in.
And they're trying to hold on to samples and stuff and have someone else do it.
Yeah.
It's like already like one of the guitar techs or something.
So
he loads all his stuff up and takes it with him. And they're like, hey, we heard you fucked up all the keys. Because some of the keyboards are his and some of them belong to the band. Or whatever, And I think the story is related in, I think it's in the Kiss Alive Forever book. He says they came and said, you fucked up the keywords, what's going on? He's like, no, it's my stuff, and if you want to use my stuff, you pay me to use my stuff. Otherwise, and I guess they paid him to not use the stuff, or whatever. February 7th, Charlotte, North Carolina.
That's what I was just about to say. I was waiting for the timestamp.
I was there.
Oh shit.
Yeah. I can remember this show.
So
pretty
Asylum
clearly.
didn't run you away.
No, I came back for more because I'm stupid. This is what I can remember about that show. I remember it being it was still festival seating. We went down, got as close as we could. Same thing. This time, somehow between Ted's set and Kiss's set, we had gotten shuffled all the way over from one side of the stage. We were on the looking at stage right, I guess. So we went from one side to the other, getting without even trying.
Damn.
Because by the time Kiss got on stage, I was on Gene's side of the stage. Right. But my memory of this is Ted just fucking blowing the fucking doors off Kiss.
Really?
Interesting.
It was just, and Ted had the added bonus, at least at this show, and maybe, I don't know what the story is here. I should have researched this. I meant to. He had David St. Holmes with him.
Oh, that sang on
the original
Stranglehold
singer,
and all that.
Yeah. Every time I have to struggle to say that name because I want to say Derek St. Hubbins.
Yes.
which is horrible. But, and it was still kind of like, it was still kind of cock metal teased a little bit, but Ted just was aggro,
Yeah.
He just threw the fuck down. I mean, it was badass. And I wasn't a big Ted fan at that point.
But you were like, damn.
But I was like, God damn.
It's like Ted, say what you want about Ted. You talk about rock and roll guitar players.
Top
He's one
performer.
of them.
I mean, no, later on he opened for Kiss on the reunion tour, and I thought he sucked ass.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Was it reunion or was he on the farewell?
Whatever one it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever one of those tours.
Right.
He wasn't as good, but this tour he was really on it. I remember it being really good, and Kiss were good, but they weren't great. they played Shout It Out Loud. That was a big thing for me personally because, of course, I like that classic shit.
Yeah.
And when they played
opened
that,
with Love Gun.
They opened with Love Gun, which was really weird. I remember really being surprised by that. And then they played Shout It Out Loud. And here's another thing I remember from this show. We talked about a show they did in South Carolina on the Animalized tour where a lighting technician fell from the light rig.
Yeah.
This happened again in Charlotte.
Oh,
and I can't find any information on it. I don't think the guy was seriously hurt, but he fell. I saw it out of the corner of my eye, and I wasn't 100% sure I saw what I saw, but I could see the people that were on that side of the stage, and that could see. They were on the
scaffolding.
No, they were on the side of the arena, looking down at the side of the stage. It was kind of where the audience peppers out. And, it starts circling around behind the stage. They were all pointing. This is during their show. And a couple of songs later, I saw a paramedic on the stage, and Gene was over off the side of the stage, like, kind of behind the PA column or whatever it was, where his bass rig, his bass roadie guy would be and all that. Yeah. And there was a paramedic there, and he walked over and he said something to the paramedic and patted the guy on his shoulder. And that was like out of view of most of the audience, but it was still in view of the audience. So it's all what
Yeah.
I've never been able to find any information about this.
Interesting.
So, but a guy fell and whatever. Blah blah blah.
This podcast will spark interest again. Who knows?
Well, something I wanted to make note since we're kind of talking about
this isn't the same show where the guy got killed. This is a different show.
Something I wanted to make mention this since we're talking about the set list here. I feel like this is the first time, and it becomes even more prevalent with the next tour with Hot in the Shade, but this is when they start adding a lot more of the classics back in the set.
They do towards the end of this run. Right now, the only song that I think they played that was...
Well, I've got a list here of from your show in Charlotte.
Yeah.
February 7th, it's Love Gun, Cold Gin, Bang Bang You, Fits Like a Glove, Tears Are Falling, Shout It Out Loud, War Machine, Reason to Live, Heaven's on Fire, I Love It Loud, Lick It Up, Rock and Roll All Night, Crazy Nights, Detroit.
That's 5 songs from the classic era.
Right.
Out of a 20-song set list.
I mean, I would still kind of count War... I saw your fingers. You didn't count War Machine and I Love It Loud?
No,
you didn't count Creatures.
I don't count Creatures.
I'm counting all makeup.
Okay, well, but most of those songs are still basically... those were the hinge, the linchpins or whatever. Is Cold Gin on that list?
Let me get back to it.
Yeah, I think it was.
Second song.
Cold Gin was pretty common. You knew they were going to do Detroit Rock City.
Right.
Love Gun was a surprise only because it was up front. The real surprise was Shout It Out Loud.
Got it.
But when you talk about classic Kiss, I'm thinking of stuff like Got to Choose.
Well, so here's the thing. So
years, I don't know.
And the deep cuts.
Well, but here's the set list from the tour.
They had played Once Upon a Time.
Here's the set list from the tour before, though. Detroit Rock City, Fits Like a Glove, All Night, Cold Gin, Under the Gun, Still Love You, Love It Loud, Tears Are Falling, War Machine, Love Gun, Rock and Roll All Night, Heaven's on Fire, Lick It Up.
So there's one more, which is, and that one more is... Shout It Out Loud. Therefore, that's the surprise.
Why they love
all
playing,
those other 4 songs are the exact same songs that had been in their set list.
Why they love playing fucking Fits Like a Glove.
See, now this is why we call it a Kiss Nerd podcast.
Exactly.
Because who the hell else gives a shit,
But that's why we're here, damn it.
But that's what you're paying to see, really. I'm not paying to see him play Fits Like a Glove.
No, I fully agree. I fully agree.
Columbus, Georgia, February 15th. Gene makes national news when he is arrested after playfully mooning a small part of the audience, which is in that same spot I was talking about. There's that spot over by where his roadie was, and there's only a small portion of the audience so that's visible to that they can see. And I guess, I don't know if he's doing some sort of wardrobe change or whatever he's doing, but he turns around and he moons the audience.
Oh no!
I've never heard about a story of Gene getting arrested.
He got arrested. I remember this
because I know he, of course, that's like just a night in the slammer thing. Get out the next morning, or like,
it wasn't even probably that. He probably got arrested, and by the time he got there, they were already getting him out.
But still, for the fact, I never heard any story about Gene being reprimanded by cops. That's just like, whoa,
yeah, really
moon the crowd.
I know, right?
Oh God, dude, we can't have that down here in Columbus, Georgia. You rock star stars just can't come down here and just bury your ass anytime you feel like they want to.
Meanwhile, at 60 years old, he's wearing assless chaps on future tours.
Yeah, I don't know. March 1st, Madison, Wisconsin, Anthrax take over.
I know, what a shift from White Lion to...
That is an opener for this band. Good God.
That's kind of a weird pairing, but we know Anthrax are major
Big
Kiss
Kiss
fans, so
fans.
that was probably a big deal for them.
Yeah.
And their star was on the rise there. They are considered part of what they call the Big Four. Is that right?
Yeah, the Big Four in thrash metal.
Which I'm not a fan of thrash metal, so I don't know.
They're big.
I never liked Anthrax. I remember listening to their covers of Kiss songs, and I guess somewhere in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And that
their version of Parasite.
That guitar sounds like the worst guitar sound in the fucking world. It's like,
it's those Jacksons.
Who likes that shit? You know, it's like, it sounds like just doesn't even sound like a guitar. It just sounds fucking terrible. I've never liked Anthrax. And that guy Scott Ian,
I enjoy him a good bit.
That guy Scott Ian seems like a cool motherfucker. I could probably hang out and talk shit all night long with him. But you know what?
Is that beard?
The band fucking
Top five most fun live bands I've ever seen, though.
Like, honestly, like Cap
interest.
Cap and I saw them opening for Motorhead, and that was like one of I think it was like the last 3 or 4 shows before Lemmy died, and we were at that show here in Charlotte, and Anthrax. I feel like you might back me up here, Cap, was almost as good as Motorhead, but like in different ways.
I understand what you mean.
Anthrax just had this energy
I get it.
thing, but then Motorhead came on stage, and like when you saw Lemmy,
well,
the room got cold.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh shit, there's God.
Well, I relate it to having seen Poison. I'm not a Poison fan, but I saw Poison blow David Lee Roth off the stage in 1988.
Damn,
I can see
that.
I
mean, it was what it was. You know, it's like, I'm not a fan of their music or whatever, but as a show, they were a good live band. Whatever, blah 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 blah. Anyway, March 3rd, 1988. This is an important date. This is something that really should have been the center part of this episode, and we'll talk more in the next episode about all of this. I think we'll just reserve the next episode to really look at all the ins and outs of this.
Mm-hmm.
From a early version of a cellular phone. I might be wrong on this, but the way I understand it, they're on a cellular phone in the back of a bus. Kiss is touring by bus, not by jet, like they're
just them getting the antenna out.
Yeah. And they call Glickman Marks. They call Howard Marks directly, informing them their partner from the very beginning. Howard Marks has been there the whole run. Thank you, but your services are no longer needed. We've said this a million times on this episode. Yet again, another end of an era.
Yeah.
They have retained their lawyer, Paul Marshall, and little else. They fire their publicist. They fire everything. They clean house.
Yeah.
Management is taken over by a man named Jesse Hilson, who was Paul's psychiatrist. What?
Yeah.
The fuck?
I remember reading this revelation like maybe about 10 years ago and just being like, wait, Paul's psychiatrist, therapist, is now the manager of the band. That there has to be like some, I don't know. I feel like I'm going to talk very ignorantly here, but is there like some sort of law against that?
I don't know. We'll talk about it in the next episode.
It just feels like there's some sort of like
explore all that to a greater degree on the next episode. Yeah. But
because that fascinated me.
This is symbolic on a lot of reasons. Again, because they feel like they've been misrepresented. Again, because this album is not the big grand comeback album they thought it was going to be. I mean, again, all of this leads back to the fact that this band shouldn't even be existing right now, and I don't. Some of the decision making, especially in this era, is really going to be some head scratching shit. But we'll do all that head scratching on the next episode. Yeah. So that's my teaser for the next episode. Let's finish out this tour. March 31st, the Forum in LA, canceled.
Oof.
However, from April 16th to the 24th, they toured Japan for the first time in 10 years. This is where the set list is really altered to include much more of the classic 70s material. And if you want to dig that up and look at a set list for that, you can and see how much.
Let's go with Castle Hall in Osaka, Japan.
Osaka.
And in this tour, speaking of classic stuff, you see a lot more hints at classic era things, like Gene's bass decal is a picture of his face with the demon makeup on.
It's not a decal; it's painted.
Or
it's like airbrushed.
It's more of an embracing of that for the first time. Oh, that's
so that's where I kind of want to lead in with this. Okay, so then this set list has Love Gun, Cold Gin, Bang Bang You, Calling Dr. Love.
Skip all the bullshit.
Okay.
Just get the makeup.
I just
stuff.
want to give the whole set list.
No, but Calling Dr. Love.
Oh yeah, Calling Dr. Love. You're not including War Machine.
No.
Black Diamond. I Was Made for Loving You. Shout It Out Loud. Strutter. Rock and Roll All Night. Detroit Rock City. So they played like a big chunk of the classics right at the end.
9 songs.
So on that note, though, so as I personally teased last episode that it felt like they were kind of embracing a little bit more of the 70s era. When you watch the Turn on the Night music video, there's a lot of clips of the audience in Kiss makeup and holding up like the Alive 2 sign, like the look, you know which one I'm talking about, the insert. The back of the book has the crowd shot of all the confetti and the guys.
It's the inner sleeve.
Okay, yeah. So the inner sleeve of it.
There's like a red
and a hand
glittery thing,
and the hand holding up the sign in the back. There's like a replication of that sign in the crowd.
I don't recall that, but that surprised me.
So there's like a lot of little nods now to where it feels like they're starting to embrace their original makeup era again.
How's this an embracing? June 26th at the Limelight Club in New York City. Paul and Gene attend a Fraley's Comic gig. And then join him on stage for an encore of Deuce. Gene doesn't play, he only sings. But that's where things start.
That's where the rumor mill started.
But see, that's where, and see, here's the thing though. This has to be frustrating because they're trying to rebuild this new model Kiss and they can't. And now the question is going to be from this moment on.
From this exact date.
When are you guys getting back together again?
Yeah.
No one gives a shit anymore about fucking anything they do.
Because I don't think
they're not going to give a shit about the next album. They're not going to give a shit about the album after that, even though there's diehard Kiss fans that love these albums. Doesn't fucking matter. No one gives a shit. What they want. When are you guys getting back together again?
Well, yeah, because it's like I've listened to like a handful of interviews from each era, just kind of getting a feel for how even the band is talking about themselves around now. And they would every so often get asked, have you heard from Ace or Peter lately? What do you think of their current projects? From this moment on, though, is when you started hearing in other places, there seems to be a lot of rumors about a Kiss reunion. What do you guys think of that? It's the first time they're going to really start getting asked specifically about reunions.
And this isn't 10 years after the...
Not even.
But it feels like it. And when I was a kid going through this, it felt like that was an eternity before.
Yeah.
But I guess because of your perspective at that age is only so far. But to be 16, 17, whatever I was in this era, it just seemed like an impossibly long time ago.
They have been without Ace and Peter forever.
They do an odd pair of dates at the Ritz in New York City on the 12th and 13th, exclusive club dates. Ooh. I don't understand what the reasoning or rationale is behind this. The only thing I can figure is they're looking at the prospect of having to play clubs, and they're probably just exploring what the logistics of that would be. That's the only thing that makes any sense here. Why would they do this? But they go to Europe after this for a 2-month run. They didn't do a European tour for Asylum. The Asylum dates were all in North America, and that was it. I don't even think they did Canada on the
all U.S. territory.
They've got Gary Corbett back. Hey,
welcome back.
Welcome back.
Fuck you guys.
They play the Castle Donington Monsters of Rock Festival.
And that's when you actually see the motherfucker. They put the camera on him a few times.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I remember seeing that footage. There's like clips of them like zooming in on him playing keyboards.
Rocking out on that keyboard.
Oh, yeah.
They're sandwiched between Megadeth and David Lee Roth. Iron Maiden is the headliner. This is not 10 years after Iron Maiden opened for Kiss on their first major European tour. Maiden's first major European tour. Also on the bill are Guns N' Roses and a band called Helloween.
That's the obscure one.
Helloween.
Yeah. They're still a band, I think.
This is a band called Helloween.
Oh, man, don't get the metalheads, the diehard metal fans all wired up. They'll at you.
Halloween. Halloween.
I think this might
Get it? It's like Halloween, but more
it's
evil.
Like Halloween, but it's Halloween. Not Halloween. But
I don't think anyone is saying hello to Ween.
I like wings.
It's hell, like hell. Halloween.
Is this the Donington where Guns N' Roses had the riot
Yeah,
too?
this is where two people die after being crushed during Guns N' Roses set.
But
Guns
hey,
N'
no,
Roses
this only
another band that's
this only
poised-
happens at Astro World, current day.
Yeah, this is another band that's poised to surpass everybody's everything.
Yeah.
And Kiss has a chance. Paul has a chance to produce this band and don't,
Because he gets
And
all
now-
miffed by something comment slash made or something like that.
Who knows? You know what it is.
They're wanting to make Paradise City. They played a demo of Paradise City, and Paul was recommending like a whole lot of like extra keys than what actually showed up in the original, and they're like, yeah, no. And apparently that's what caused the big
Who
rift.
knows? Who
And that's part of
knows?
the reason Slash has a problem with him, because he was trying to cut his guitar parts and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Too bad Paradise City, never became huge or anything
Yeah,
like
exactly,
that.
no.
Should have listened to Paul.
Guns N' Roses always struck me as being a derivative version of Nazareth.
Or like Hanoi Rocks is a little bit of that. I always
more
like.
Nazareth to me. That was my impression. I remember when I first heard Guns N' Roses, my first thought was they sound like Nazareth. And
They
I
cover-
wasn't really a big Nazareth fan.
They cover Hair of the Dog on the covers record they
But
did.
at the end of the day, it was the same. It's just like Poison reminded me of Cheap Trick. Yeah, I'm going to listen to Cheap Trick. Guns N' Roses remind me of Nazareth. I'm going to fucking listen to Nazareth.
Yeah.
I still love the Appetite
A
lineup.
lot of people do. I think it's
Yeah.
an overrated record. That's
that's a
gonna
whole other
gonna
podcast.
cause
There you
more
go.
heat
There's
than
the
anything
heat.
else. I think it is a overrated record. It's a decent record, but it's not a great record.
Well, this has been a great run of episodes. Yeah. Time to turn. I already see the red laser laying on Russ's forehead.
Well, I'll debate that with anybody. September 4th at Tilburg, Netherlands, is related in Kiss Alive Forever. Story goes, the decision is made to cut the drum solo.
Oh, no.
This, of course, hurts Eric's feelings. I just wanted to relate this story because I thought it was so amusing to me, because I have done this.
I feel like I know where this story is.
Yeah, so I guess to help make him buoy his feelings, the day after the show, Bruce, Gary Corbett, and the sound guy Night Bob, who's a legendary legendary sound guy, the legendary Night Bob, who in and of himself is a treasure trove of stories. I've got a Night Bob T-shirt because I'm a mark, right? And you know what? He was running sound at the last Ace Frehley show I was at, and I forgot to go see if I could try to talk to him. Well, anyway, they get Eric Carr high. At one of the local hash dens, I guess the muffins, the space muffins, whatever the space cake, whatever they call it. And, he eats some, and being inexperienced in this, I guess, he believes he will die if he attempts to eat or sleep.
Oh, no.
They're like, eat something else and you'll come down. No, if I eat something, I'll choke to death and I'll die. Well, go to sleep. No, if I fall asleep, I'll never wake up again and
bastard.
I'll die.
Sweet little Eric.
Poor Eric.
I wonder if this is the same trick, because Gene said that he's only been high once, and it was because he had a hash brownie.
No, that was in the 70s.
It was, okay.
Yeah, they did that to him in the 70s.
Okay. I was going to say, that'd be fucked up if that was like the same night. Both of them are like,
I didn't get paranoid when it happened to me. I just got fucked up beyond all comprehension and could not function. Somehow I managed to function. I don't remember much about it, but whatever.
I still want a hash
when you
brownie.
eat it, apparently it metabolizes differently and makes you way more high. And I don't do drugs, so I don't know. But this one time I ate this shit like a dumbass, and I ate way too much, and I was fucked up for 2 days. So I have complete sympathy for Eric Carr in this. And I think it's funny that he goes and confesses his sin to Paul and apologizes.
Oh, poor guy.
And Paul would not have even known about it because they had like time off between shows and this happened. But he just felt so guilty he went and confessed anyway. You know, I gotta go tell Paul.
I need to go tell the boss.
So Paul starts to calling Gary Corbett the pusher man. Oh, look, here comes the pusher man.
I said, God damn.
Yeah, really.
Well, see, I thought this was what I was going to lead into. This was the tour in which Eric started getting a little cold toward Paul.
Yeah, he got. That's the other thing that's interesting about this is he got it, and Paul's like relates it, and again, this is Paul's version is like, he couldn't get over the fact that he was the replacement drummer.
I think it's because you even just now cut his solo, man.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, I think they treat him like shit. They bring in a guy to overdub his drum parts. They've cut his solo. I don't know. I mean, it's like I think they don't really give him much consideration at all.
Yeah.
And why should they? Kiss is a duo. It's Gene and Paul. That's just the truth of it. And that's what I think is gonna piss Kiss nerds off. Is I'm going to keep relating to the fact that Kiss is a duo. They're not a band. They're a duo. They're a duo. I mean, they are a duo.
They admit it themselves today. Even they're like, Kiss is Gene and Paul.
Yeah, it's just a duo. And anyone else they can do. Anybody can take those spots. Anybody.
Well, it's like
they're completely
even Doc
inconsequential. And here's the reason why we say that is this kind of episode right here where Eric gets his feelings hurt because he knows he's inconsequential. He's totally expendable, and at any minute he can be gone, just like that.
Oh, yeah.
And no one's going to give a fuck because Kiss nerds don't care.
Well, and even Doc McGee on the Kiss cruise, he had kind of like a little Q&A where people were able to ask like deep questions where he would actually have information on. And they were like, and anytime he had to talk like about different eras, he always says, look, Kiss is Gene and Paul. Yeah. Like he always says that. So even Kiss's manager to the fans, they've even been kind of pushing that narrative like, look, get used to Kiss's Gene and Paul.
Fans can adapt and adopt and say that's the band, but they aren't. These guys don't matter, and it's the thing you have to remember.
Well, it's not that they don't matter.
They do absolutely do not matter.
On paper, they don't matter.
They don't matter anyway. We've already seen in the time since their willingness to make an abrupt change as necessary. But anyway, let's wipe this clean. Let's wind this up. On Belfast, Ireland, that's the last night of the Crazy Nights tour, and the last we really see of anything Crazy Nights. Kiss will rarely ever reference this album ever again.
Nope.
Despite it achieving a platinum status, this album was seen as a failure because 1 million copies weren't the 12 million copies that Def Leppard, Bon Jovi, and Whitesnake were having. It was expected to be a huge multi-platinum album, and it came up just far too short, and has since largely been forgotten and overlooked by the band, with none of these songs being retained in their regular set lists. In the last 10 years, a sporadic appearance of the song Crazy Crazy Nights.
And that's it.
I don't know if they do it in America. I think they do it in Europe as a concession to the fact that it had been a hit song over there. But really, this album may have never been done at all. And I know there's people that love 80s Kiss and they swear by this album, but it's a non-entity. And this was the album that was supposed to be huge.
Oh, yeah.
And it was nothing. It may as well never have been recorded.
Is it over in England, is spitting considered a positive or negative thing?
It's positive in England.
It was a positive thing. It was more associated to the punk thing in the 70s.
I was going to say.
I know. They tell the story that they got spit on.
Yeah, because it says the final show of the Crazy Nights tour, toward the end of the show, Paul addresses the audience about spitting because the band had been covered in phlegm throughout the show, quoting saying, "Everyone here likes to spit, right? Come on, you know you like it, right? If you want to spit, when I count to 3, why don't you spit straight in the air and see if you can catch it on your nose?"
I don't have an opinion on that either way. I've never had to experience.
Well, I was just wondering if that was like an audience negative reaction or like.
I think it's a positive thing.
Sort of a positive thing.
Yeah, if you read
I don't know.
Back to Guns N' Roses, if you read Slash's book, he laments that too. When they toured in Europe, they got spat all over because they loved the band too.
I was just checking before I fully delved into that one.
But the band's in a lot of trouble financially off of this thing. They're in a lot of trouble financially anyway. We're going to outline that on the next episode. We're also going to see that they're in trouble musically because they're going to kind of tuck their tail between their legs and put out a curious quote unquote greatest hits package. But they're going to add some new material
and remix a lot of it,
and remix some older material and try to update and upgrade whatever. But there's a lot going on here. Their management is changing. Their financial whatever is not changing.
And you know what? I think there's one pivotal thing that happens that we're going to talk about next episode that may have been Eric Carr's final mental straw.
Yeah, that's fair. And we'll explore all that to greater degree on the next episode. So hopefully you guys will join us as we continue this roller coaster ride now to the 80s.
All right.
These crazy nights. Man. So for Alex and Cap, I'm Russ, and this has been No Time to Turn.
Thank you for listening. Please insert another coin by supporting the show for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/somethinggoodnetwork.